Each of the 3 units can be done first with a foam ball, and then can be done with a more bouncy ball. And at the end of the 3 units, depending on the amount of time and how good the students are, they could progress to more regular type of tennis. You're going to find it very useful to place a cone to help the student establish their position. So if I'm hitting against the sidewall, 6 feet is about here. So if I place a cone on the floor here, this will let the student know if they're wandering too far away or too far in front. The other thing that you'll find very useful is to place some sort of target on the floor. So it could be a piece of paper, or it could be marking with some chalk. And this will give the student an opportunity to give themselves feedback about where the ball is bouncing. So here's how it would work. Unit 1, 6 feet from the front wall. First, the grip. No matter which of the sports you're working in, a good starting point would be a universal grip that they could use for a backhand or a forehand in any of the sports. And that universal grip is what we would call in tennis, it would be a continental grip. It'd also be similar to a squash grip. And in racquetball, it would also be, it could be, a lot of the players switch at the top world level, but some of them use a unique single grip. So the way to find that grip is to shake hands with the racket, make a V, shake hands with the racket, make a V, and that V should be just down the center of the racket or slightly to the left. This will give you sort of an open racket face on the forehand and an open racket face on the backhand on both sides. Okay? It's also called the hammer grip, so if you pick up the racket and pretend to hammer a nail, that's also a good grip. At this distance, we're looking for a 0 to 1 with a pushing action. Zero to one, 0 to 1, 0 to 1. And the benchmark we're using is 10 in a row. 10 in a row is a rally that will allow people to have fun. And this first unit is done solo with a self, just hitting by yourself. So I'm looking for the student to rally 10 in a row on the forehand. When they do that, I'll then have them move over and rally 10 in a row on the backhand. And again, using that 0 to a half or 0 to 1 swing. So, depending on how good the students are in their previous experience, they'll progress more or less quickly. What you want to do is not let them get too far ahead. They've got to be able to rally 10 in a row with a good grip. After the 10 in a row, forehand and backhand, then we want to alternate. So 10 in a row, nice and slow, nice and controlled. 10 in a row alternating. And then we want to do the same steps, repeat the same steps, but this time without a bounce. So what we want the student to do now is to volley the ball in the air without letting it bounce. And this is a little bit more difficult. 10 in a row on the forehand, working away, 10 in a row on the backhand. And then 10 in a row alternating. You should also give the students an opportunity to do some work over their head, preparing them for overhead shots in squash and badminton, and preparing them for the serve and the smash in tennis. This can be accomplished with this grip by placing the racket above the head, putting the ball up and simply hitting and catching, hitting and catching, hitting and catching. That way your students will develop a well-rounded game. If you're working with students that aren't that talented, you may have to precede that first unit with the self-rally unit with no distance. And what that basically means is getting them to juggle the ball just straight up and down. Again, going for 10 times in a row on the forehand, 10 times in a row on the backhand, and 10 times in a row alternating. Doing the same in the air. So, if they're not very experienced or not very talented, that might be your first unit, sort of like a pre-unit, before moving on to the 6-foot unit. I'm showing you the 6-foot unit against the wall, which could be done with a person by themselves. So you might have a group of 10 in this court doing that. But it could also easily be done with partners. So partners either tossing the ball, or let's say we're on a tennis court, instead of the wall, we could have a net. And I would be 6 feet from the net. The person on the other side would also be 6 feet from the net. We'd put little targets on the ground. We'd put cones establishing 6 feet from the net. And then we could have the players rally forehand to forehand over the net. And then backhand to backhand, alternate, volley, backhand volley, alternate volleys, and then hit a few serves to each other as well. So you get that overhead practice. So this idea of progression and distance can be done for a wall sport or for a net sport.